Well, hi out there. This is Bob Bird, and this is the official call. And today we have a very special guest, a young man that began his career in New Mexico and relocated to Nevada, became one of Nevada's best referees. I'm talking about a gentleman by the name of Russell Mora. Russell, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and privilege to be here. And I've watched your guys' show, and I think you guys do a great job. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and join with us. For those of you folks out there who don't know much about Russell, very quality referee, done some of the biggest fights here in Nevada, Canelo and Triple G. And Russell, you did the final leg of the Wilder Fury trilogy.
Correct.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
Birdman, what if you could consistently stay in top shape?
I like that.
And we know that inflammation and injury is 90% about stress. What if you could see stress building in your cells before it promotes an injury? What if you could optimize recovery at the cellular level and identify the exact frequencies your body needs to perform at its absolute peak?
Huh? Well, I understand there's this Dr. Luba Deniger. And she's a former NASA researcher and pioneer in frequency medicine. And she reveals how AI-powered bioresonance technology can revolutionize athletic performance and recovery. From keeping performance at your all-time high to preventing career-ending injuries and seriously cutting recovery time. Now, the Monicor device can change the game for elite athletes. This is the future of peak performance, and it's available today. And if you mention the official call, you also can get a discount.
Hey!
It was interesting because there's quite a story behind it. Initially, the fight was scheduled and the officials were scheduled. So when our executive director called me, he said, what do you think? Oh, and then it got canceled. Mm-hmm. So then he says, what do you think of the fight? And I says, well, isn't that already assigned to another referee? And at the time, our executive director was real, didn't like a question when he asked. It was when he was looking for an answer, and he said, "Don't worry about the assignment. I do the assignments. I'm asking you, what do you think about the fight?" And so we talked a little bit about the fight, and it was a real blessing. The fighters did, an outstanding job. It was I'm very grateful to be in the ring with that quality of champions.
Yeah. Well, now what attracted you? You know, my co-host, Kenny Bayless, always starts out this way. I want to know what made you want to do this. So, Kenny, wherever you are, I'm asking the question, what attracted you to want to be a referee?
Well, the easiest way to answer this is from the beginning. I was born into a boxing family. My father was a professional fighter from Denver, Colorado. Oh. So just as a child, I fell in love with the sport of boxing. I looked through his scrapbook, I looked through at his trophies, and I just wanted to be a champion someday, that they would raise my hand. And so, I was obsessed with boxing since I was a child. My uncles fought, my cousins fought, my little brothers fought. Myself and one of my uncles are the only two that fought, but never fought in the pros. I was, so that's how it started.
Okay, so where'd you start? In
Well,
Denver?
I did. I actually started fighting amateurs in Denver, Colorado, and then moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I won our state Golden Gloves in 1980 as novice, and in 1981 as the regional Albuquerque Golden Glove champion.
All right. Okay. So you went on to become one of the top officials in this game. We're always talking about giving something back. What advice would you give to a young person out there who is aspiring to become a professional boxing referee?
Well, to start with that answer is surround yourself with great referees. I was very blessed that I got the opportunity to be here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I got to share the ring with Joe Cortez, Robert Byrd, Jay Nady, Kenny Bayless, Tony Weeks, Vic Draculich. These were my peers when I first got here, and so everyone took me under the in their arms and guided me, and we talked. We would go to the gyms together, and they basically gave me that education. So surround yourself with great referees. Be honest with yourself. Know what your progress is, and be careful what you wish for. Because if you get that fight, you got to be prepared for it.
Again, that's one of the things I want to share you. We know that sometimes you do have to deal with a little bit of adversity doing your job as a professional referee. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, you got to be honest with yourself. Look at yourself and figure out what went wrong. If in fact you had a difficult fight that was either with controversy or that was criticized, highly criticized. And of course, mine was the low blow gate with Joseph Agbeko and Abner Mares. I wasn't prepared for the fight. If I had that fight to do today, it would have been an entirely different fight. I would have called time. I would have explained to the fighters what was going on, what was going wrong. This way, the announcers would clearly understand what I was doing, because the announcers had no idea what I was seeing. Look, a low blow is this: a fighter has a foul-proof cut. Now, I'm not saying that it's 100%, but it's probably 90%. Mm-hmm. I've been hit as a fighter low many times, and it's a foul-proof cut. Unless you hit underneath it or if you go sideways, it's going to protect the fighter. But so, first off, we can't get overexcited when there's a low blow. We have to assess the situation. Mm-hmm. But in this case, the low blows were being caused by the fighter pulling his head down. Mm-hmm. So now I have two people doing something wrong. But just because he pulls your head down doesn't give you a green light to hit him low. Mm-hmm. So I never took control of the fight. And if I would have had the tools and been more prepared for that fight, that would have been without controversy. And I think that's what's important. The referee should always be prepared for anything that happens in the ring.
Right. And one of the models that I live by is that I may fail, but it will never be because I wasn't prepared.
Exactly.
So preparation is the key. Exactly. And how you handle that adversity. For young guys out there and women who want to come into this profession, it's a tough profession because it's the only one that, well, now MMA also, the only one where the sole goal is to render your opponent unconscious.
Correct.
And that's very serious. And so it's not a job that can be taken lightly. It's not a weekend job.
Correct. Well, it's a part-time job with a full-time commitment. We have to give
I like that.
I think that came from Jack. I stole that from Jack Reese. Another one of my referees go to, and he and I have talked for hours and hours on the telephone about situations and being prepared. Now that I'm retired as a referee, I have other reasons to want to teach the referees and to bring up that new generation so that they don't have to learn the hard way. They don't have to learn some of the hard mistakes that I made, and share with them the experiences that we've learned in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
But 100%, you've got to give this sport everything you got, because the safety of the fighter is the number one reason why there's a referee. Number one reason why we're in the ring is for the safety of the fighters.
Okay. Now, what was your biggest fight, your biggest challenge?
Well, it was the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury fight. And the challenge was that they were so big. I probably came up to about their elbow, both of them. And it was just the size of these guys. But I had a big advantage in the third fight because I watched the first fight that Jack Reese reffed, and I watched the second fight that Kenny Bayless reffed. I saw what was working and what wasn't working, and then I spoke with Jack Reese on the phone for more than hours, for days, and then I spoke with Kenny Bayless the same way. What was working for you in this fight? So now going into the third fight, I had a big advantage.
Yeah.
So when I went to the dressing room, because the fight is really, the control of the fight starts in the dressing room, I straight up told the fighters what I expect. I told Tyson Fury that if he's going to put all his weight on him and put him in a headlock, to think about something different, because that could start costing him points. It was interesting because when I talked to Deontay Wilder, I said that I expect a clean fight, and I was going on, and he said, well, let me just tell you something, ref. If he fouls me once, I'm going to foul him twice. I said, okay, hold on a second, time out. Let's think about this, because if you're intentionally fouling your opponent and it goes the distance, and the scorecards were 2-point deductions, I said, that can affect you. And so anyway, he relaxed, and he was just talking from emotions.
Yeah.
And he behaved himself in the ring very well, as did his opponent.
Yeah.
So just the size and the magnitude of the fight.
Yeah. Now, what do you think about some of the new changes to the sport?
Specifically, what changes are you referring to, Bob?
There's a move out there to merge Dana White and the Sheikh, and there's some other things that they want to accomplish. They want to change the way that fights are done. They want to, as I understand it, they want to go back to the original eight divisions, in boxing. And that's been, we've talked on the show to a lot of fighters, ex-fighters, and they don't think that that's a good thing, because there are people who, let's say you weigh 145 pounds. You can't make 154 pounds. So that's why this weight division was brought in. And that has to do with safety too, because someone is too big. So that's one of the changes that are coming down the road. They want to amend the Muhammad Ali Act. So there's a lot of changes that are on the horizon for this. Mostly what this really comes down to is the sport has been, in my opinion, in a decline, okay? Most of the heavyweights, the good heavyweights, are all in Europe now. A great many of the challenging best fights are in Europe or in Saudi. And one of the things that we constantly hear is, they're not putting on good fights.
Right.
The fights aren't competitive. And my understanding is what Mr. White wants to do is have the best fight the best. And as a fan, you want that because the fight is a product. And as a fan, I'm going to be buying this thing. So I don't want to be buying a flawed product.
Right.
And I think that's sort of what they're trying to say. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm still not completely understanding what all is involved with the changes to the Muhammad Ali Act. So I'll hold some of my comments regarding the details. However, what I will say is that it appears to me that they want to model boxing as they did with UFC, and have a lot more control over what they do and how much they invest and the return for it. But look, I've heard this so many times now, and I watched the legislature discuss this, and the thing is boxing is in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. American boxing was really big with heavyweights.
Yes,
it was humongous, and then NFL and NBA took off. So these kids at that time, in order to be a millionaire as an athlete, the only way you can do that in sports was to be a boxer. So a heavyweight champion of the world was the only way these guys, these great athletes, could be a millionaire. But today it's not true anymore. So if you really want to make boxing the way it was in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, is you have to outlaw NFL. And that is never going to happen.
Never going to happen.
But the thing is that's where all the great athletes are going, is to NFL and to NBA. Can you imagine Shaquille O'Neal as a heavyweight? But we would have to get these guys when they're 10 or 12 years old in the gym to teach them how to throw a jab, how to slip a jab, how to block. You would have to get them early when they're young. If when they're 20 or 30, or they're not going to learn how to box. Or they would have to be an exceptional athlete to do it. And I'm sure it's possible, of course. But the American heavyweight is extinct. It's gone. So anything below light heavy is American fighters. Can you imagine Crawford? If Terrence Crawford was 100 pounds heavier,
man,
nobody would beat him as a heavyweight. Or let's say Terrence Crawford was a foot taller, he'd be Michael Jordan, a quality of a basketball player if he wanted to. He's that good of an athlete. But again, he would have to start at 10, 12 years old playing that sport. And that's, I think, where the athletes have gone. It's for certain the attendance. I was curious to see how many people will tune into the Super Bowl. And I learned that it's almost 400 million people will tune in to watch the Super Bowl. The fight of the decade was Terrence Crawford and Canelo. And there was about 34 million people that watched the fight. So 34 million to 400 million, big difference. And that's where I think the American, everyone wants to see the heavyweights, and I think that's why boxing in the heavyweight division has suffered so much in America. And that's why Europe has all the champions, or Ukraine, or other countries, and not United States.
And also a part of that is that a lot of these fights, the major fights, are going to Saudi. And we're kind of Nevada has been the boxing capital of the world, and so we're a little saddened, because that's no longer true.
Well, it's interesting because boxing has gotten spread out a lot now. I think California gets a lot of fights now. Texas and Florida. Used to be at one time it was just New York and Las Vegas. And now it's getting spread out quite a bit. But is it a good thing with all the boxing in Saudi Arabia? I think, I mean, it's good for the fighters. And if they're making money, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And and if they're making fights, because the fans want to see the fights.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Now, you now are retired,
Yes, sir.
as from the ring at least,
Yes.
and you serve as a supervisor for the World Boxing Organization. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what it entails?
Well, I serve on the board of for the WBO, World Boxing Organization, and my position is a chairman of officials. So obviously my focus is for the officials, so that way, again, we can conduct the seminars and do the proper training for them. This is world title fights, so the judges have to be the best in the world. The referees have to be the best in the world. And again, with the seminars, they'll learn from situations. We'll show them film of a situation that could have been done different or better. There's, recently we have a committee now for the ABC for the referees guidelines. Referees manual, and also for the unified rules. And the full understanding of those rules is absolutely imperative, and that's what we teach in our seminars. And it's, if any referees out there want to get involved, please, there's a committee for the ABC. You're welcome to write any proposal if there's any changes that is requested. We, try to keep it simple. We try to keep it that we cover all situations, or at least in principle. But that's so. As a board director, we're also assigned to the fights, to the world title fights for the WBO, and it's a supervisor position. That what we do is verify that all the rules are followed to justify it being a world title, or for it to qualify for a world title. Starting from the weigh-ins, everything, the protocol, everything has to be followed. What we do basically is witness and document, and have signatures from from the commission, from the doctors who conducted the physicals, to the fighters. They'll sign, their insurance forms and whatnot. And so, in a nutshell, all that is included as the supervisor.
You also conduct, and I don't know that fans out there know all of the stuff that goes on in the back room. You conduct rules meetings.
Correct.
And can you talk a little bit about that? So for the fans out there, this is what kind of goes on in the back room.
Right. So before every fight, after the weigh-ins, we'll actually give a full reading of the unified rules. There's 13 unified rules. So it doesn't take long, but each and every single rule is covered and read to the fighters or their representative for that title fight, or for any of the fights that are on the card. Usually it's conducted by the commissions, the local commissions. They'll actually read this, and if they don't, they choose to ask the supervisor to do it, we're more than happy to, but it's officially conducted by the commissions.
Okay.
It's very important. So now that they've had the rule meeting, when we go to the dressing room as a referee, it's no longer a rule meeting. Now it's expectations. What we expect from the fighters and what they can expect from us as a referee.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you were to pass along any advice to all of the fans out there, what would it be?
Well, first, thank you for your interest, because we love this sport. I love this sport. This is a sport that I've been obsessed with since I was a child. So thank you for sharing the same love for the sport that I do. Second, and get involved. Get involved in the sport you love. Boxing needs you. You know, the thing is that yes, I fought, you fought, but a lot of referees didn't fight. A lot of judges didn't fight. So you don't have to have been a boxer to get involved as an official. And if an official's not your position, then a deputy inspector or a commissioner, or anywhere that you can fit in with the sport you love, get involved. Yeah.
Right. Russell, you know, as always, I love chatting out with you. And we are very, very pleased that you came and spent some time with us here today. We may, after we flesh out a few things, we bring you back again at another time. But before we go, would you, for all our fans out there, give a shout out for the official call?
The official call, tune in. This is a great show and you'll learn a lot.